Breaking: a Prime Minister just got ambushed on live TV, and what happened next exposed everything wrong with British politics right now. Keir Starmer walked into GB News thinking he'd defend Labour's budget. Instead, Christopher Hope hit him with polling data that should terrify every politician in Westminster. The overwhelming majority of viewers say this budget has ruined their Christmas and made them actively poorer. And Starmer's response: watch him crumble in real time. If you want more unfiltered political breakdowns like this, hit subscribe. We're cutting through the spin every single day. Here's what actually happened. Rachel Reeves just delivered a budget that hammered working families with tax rises across the board. Businesses are reeling. Households are tightening belts. The economic impact isn't theoretical anymore. It's showing up in people's bank accounts, and GB News viewers are furious. So Christopher Hope does what real journalists should do. He puts the evidence directly in front of the Prime Minister. No softballs, no friendly setup, just raw polling data. Your budget has made people worse off. They say you've ruined Christmas. What's your response? This is the moment where leadership shows up, where you acknowledge people's pain, explain the difficult choices, maybe show some genuine empathy for families struggling to make ends meet. And this is where it gets revealing. Starmer doesn't do any of that. He doesn't acknowledge their pain. He doesn't sit with the weight of what people are telling him. Instead, he pivots immediately to rehearsed lines that sound like they came straight from a focus group. We've asked everybody to make a contribution to necessary and fair decisions for our country. Let's translate that. We're taking your money, deal with it. And we're calling it fair because that sounds better than admitting we're squeezing working families. Everybody making a contribution. That's the kind of language politicians use when they want to avoid saying what they're actually doing. It's passive. It's vague. It's designed to make you feel guilty for even questioning whether this is right. But then comes the move every politician uses when they're cornered. The NHS shield. He tells GB News viewers the money is protecting the NHS, which will be a huge concern of theirs. He adds that when they and their families need it, hopefully not over Christmas, but when they do, it's protected for them. Here's the problem with that response. It's simultaneously patronising and evasive. It's patronising because he's essentially telling people their concerns about being worse off are invalid. Sure, you can't afford Christmas presents, but at least you've got healthcare, right? As if caring about the NHS means you can't also care about feeding your family or heating your home. And it's evasive because he's not actually addressing whether the budget has made people poorer. He's just changing the subject to something more comfortable. Something he thinks people won't challenge, because who wants to be the person arguing against the NHS? This is textbook deflection. You can support the NHS and still ask why your taxes just went up. These aren't mutually exclusive positions. But Starmer treats legitimate financial concerns like they're somehow selfish or short-sighted, because at least you've got healthcare. It's like if your mate borrowed 50 quid, and when you ask for it back, they say, well, at least we're still friends though, right? The friendship doesn't pay your rent. Christopher Hope isn't buying it. He fires back with a question that cuts straight to the bone. Prime Minister, you are raising taxes on working people and giving that money to those on benefits. How can that be right? Now that's a devastating question. That's the question millions of people are asking around their kitchen tables right now. You get up every morning. You go to work, you pay your taxes, you do everything you're supposed to do. And now you're paying even more so that money can be redistributed to people who don't work. Explain that. Make it make sense. And this is where Starmer properly snaps back. You can hear the irritation in his voice, the defensiveness. No, it's going to our NHS. It's going to our schools. It's going to our living measures. NHS again. Schools this time. Living measures, whatever those are. He's throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks. Then he plays what he clearly thinks is his trump card. His mic drop moment. He says he won't apologise for the fact that they're lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. He doesn't want to live in a country where children pay the price for poverty. Now, here's the problem with that response, and it's a big one. Using children as a moral shield in political debate is transparent as glass. Nobody is arguing against helping children. You'd have to be a monster to say, actually, I think children should suffer. But that's not what Christopher Hope asked. The question was about taking money from working people and giving it to those on benefits. Starmer didn't answer that question. He just said, think of the children, and hoped everyone would nod along and stop asking uncomfortable things. It's deflection dressed up as moral superiority, and it's insulting to people's intelligence. Social media certainly caught it. The internet exploded within hours. One user on X wrote, using children to deflect from their abysmal tenure is just poor form. They're absolutely right. This is becoming Labour's default move with everything. Every uncomfortable question gets answered with, "But think of the children," or "But the NHS though." It's a pattern, and people are starting to see through it. Then came the observation that really stings. Another person posted, "But he does not mind putting pensioners in poverty." And that's the hypocrisy nobody can ignore. That's the contradiction that makes this entire interview fall apart. While Starmer lectures the nation about lifting children out of poverty, while he claims moral high ground about protecting the vulnerable, his government just cut winter fuel payments for pensioners. Elderly people on fixed incomes will lose heating support this winter, while he redirects billions elsewhere. Think about that for a second. Really sit with it. You cannot claim to protect the vulnerable while taking heating allowances from old people in December. You cannot say you care about poverty while forcing pensioners to choose between eating and staying warm. That's not nuanced policy. That's not tough choices. That's hypocrisy. And it reveals exactly who Labour thinks deserves help and who doesn't. Apparently, some vulnerable groups are politically convenient to protect. Others can freeze. What made this interview so revealing wasn't just what Starmer said, it was how he said it. His entire demeanour shifted. He got defensive. He got snippy. He snapped at Christopher Hope instead of calmly defending his position. That body language, that tone, that irritation, it all tells you something important. He knows the polling is catastrophic. He knows people are angry. He knows families are genuinely struggling. And he doesn't have an answer beyond repeating NHS and children louder and hoping conviction compensates for substance. Christopher Hope did exactly what journalism should look like. Present facts, ask direct questions, push back on non-answers. Make powerful people explain their decisions to the people affected by them. Don't just accept vague platitudes about saving the NHS when people are telling you they can't afford groceries. Don't let politicians hide behind emotionally manipulative appeals when legitimate policy questions are on the table. The fact that this is considered confrontational, the fact that people call this an ambush, says everything about how softly politicians expect to be treated most of the time. The polling itself is damning. Not just bad, damning. The overwhelming majority of GB News viewers feel actively worse off and believe Christmas is ruined because of this budget. Now, GB News has a particular audience, sure. But these are still British voters. These are still people who have to navigate the real-world consequences of these policy decisions. When they say they're worse off, that's not abstract. That's not propaganda. These are people looking at their bank accounts and realising they have less money than before. Looking at their bills and seeing everything cost more. Looking at their family budgets and having to make cuts they shouldn't have to make. That's not a messaging problem. That's not a communications issue. That's a policy problem. When Starmer says the decisions are necessary and fair, what exactly is fair about making working families poorer? What's necessary about taking more from people who are already struggling? What's the actual justification beyond, "we decided this is how it's going to be"? The budget has become a political disaster on multiple fronts. Tax rises everywhere hitting ordinary people. Businesses getting crushed under increased national insurance contributions, and ordinary people feeling the pain in their daily lives. That's 3 catastrophic failures happening simultaneously. And Starmer's only response is to get defensive on television and recycle the same tired talking points he probably practiced in the mirror that morning. We're protecting the NHS, we're helping children, we're making fair decisions. As if saying it enough times makes it true. As if repetition creates reality. Let's be completely clear about what Christopher Hope exposed with that question. You are literally transferring money from people who work to people who don't. That's not spin. That's not biased framing. That's not right-wing propaganda. That's what's happening. That's the actual policy. Maybe you think wealth redistribution is good policy. That's a legitimate political position. People can disagree about whether the state should take from workers to give to non-workers. That's a real debate worth having. But you can't pretend it's something else. You can't say, no, it's going to the NHS, when everyone can see where the money is actually going. You can't claim you're not redistributing wealth when that's literally what the budget does. Starmer talks about lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. Okay, let's examine that claim. How are you defining poverty? What's the mechanism? Is this real improvement in children's lives or statistical manipulation of poverty metrics? And most importantly, why does it specifically require taking more money from workers' pockets through increased taxation? Are there no other ways to fund anti-poverty programs? Is squeezing working families the only option on the table? These are fair questions that deserve real answers. Not emotional manipulation, not deflection to the NHS, not think of the children moral shields. Actual substantive policy answers. The pensioner issue is politically devastating and morally indefensible. You cannot take moral high ground about protecting vulnerable groups while simultaneously cutting support for elderly people in winter. Either you protect the vulnerable or you don't. Either poverty matters or it doesn't. Either people deserve dignity and support or they're expendable. Picking and choosing which groups deserve help based on political convenience is exactly what people despise about politicians. It's the kind of cynical calculation that makes voters feel like they're being played. And watching Starmer do it in real time while claiming moral superiority, while lecturing people about fairness and contribution, is genuinely infuriating. This interview revealed something crucial about this government that should worry everyone, regardless of political affiliation. They're not prepared for scrutiny. They won a massive majority and thought that meant they could do whatever they wanted without consequences. That they could pass whatever budget they liked and people would just accept it because, what are you going to do? Vote them out in 5 years. But people aren't accepting it. They're angry, they're worse off, they're speaking up. And when confronted with that reality, when faced with actual evidence of people's pain, Starmer has nothing except rehearsed talking points and defensive snapping. That's not leadership, that's panic. That's someone who knows the ground is shifting beneath them and doesn't know how to stop it. So here's the question Labour doesn't want to answer. If your budget makes working people demonstrably poorer, if it ruins Christmas for families already struggling, if it cuts support for freezing pensioners while increasing benefits elsewhere, what exactly makes it fair? Starmer couldn't answer that in the interview. Labour can't answer it now. And until they can, this polling is only going to get worse. What do you think? Is Starmer right to prioritise redistribution over working families? Or is this budget the political disaster it appears to be? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to hear from you. And if this kind of unfiltered analysis is what you're looking for, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. British politics is about to get a lot more interesting.